This is not their war, because they do not fight at all. These people are peaceful, civilians. Among them there are very old people, persons with disabilities, lonely, defenseless against the fire of war. They are found and transferred to a safer place. Now it is Dnipro, where Ocean of Good is located. The center of temporary residence and social adaptation of evacuees is a place where people save people. Avdiivka. The heat of combat. They shoot all day and night long. There you don't sleep on a bunk but jumping up, and the shots are so loud. Raisa Rebonenko has just been brought to a temporary residence center. Psychologists are talking to her. Still, 88 years old woman cannot calm down. There are 80 apartments in the building, and none of them have windows. And walls, load-bearing walls of enormous thickness, they were shot through. And people live. They cook food on fire, make tea. Nobody wants them. What does it mean, nobody? We want them. Civilians, runaways from the war. It wasn't easy to create a specialized institution in Dnipro where those who get no care during the war could be brought.
А ну-ка, еще раз, так же самое, как машинки делали. Хватит меня за шею. Оп. И оп. И садимся. Опа. Все, сидим. На заднюю пойдем. Супер.
When the evacuation began, I saw crowds of people storm the rail cars, and I realized that a person with disability, or an old man, a mother with a small children, they couldn't just get through there. Olga Volkova knows the issue from her own experience. She is a disabled person herself and therefore understands what needs to be done for people like her. The evacuation to the West region started just in March. Olga Volkova convinced the headquarters of Dnipro Territorial Defense that special railways cars with separate seats of people with disabilities are needed. But almost at the same time arose the problem of accepting evacuees from the East regions. I immediately contacted the city authorities in order to organize. People here have been waiting for months when some institution in western Ukraine or somewhere near Kiev in different places of settlement will accept these people.
Холл можно поставить?
Да, можно в холл, можно сразу в комнаты заносить.
In the center Ocean of Good in Dnipro, everyone is accepted. sick persons, bed patients with and without accompaniment, lonely or lost men. Everyone is welcomed, warmed and fed.
Мы пропустили уже 1600.
Well, starting from March 24th, we've already accepted 1,604 persons.
Это с 24 марта.
Мій клієнтуль був половина.
I had a microstroke. Half of me is normal, but my legs. There is no coordination. Sometimes I fall, and I'm left alone. I wasn't alone before, but now this happened. As psychologists say, Victor began to communicate much more. A hope for an improvement of his condition appeared.
У всіх такі долі, у всіх різні, і у всіх пов'язала ось ця ситуація.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
Как вы тут?
Красота.
Красота.
Volunteer psychologists just try to talk to people as much as possible.
И 10 классов закончила, поступила в технику.
Люди, которые попадают сюда,
People who come here often were in such conditions: bombings, cellars, lack of food, water, death of relatives, parting with loved ones, plus older people, those who do not walk or walk poorly, and they have already formed a desire to get out of life. Means it is impossible to live on, and when they come to us, it is important for everyone to find motivation to life.
здесь важно у каждого найти мотивацию жить. Надо отдохнуть.
Ага. У меня коленный сустав.
Sometimes Katerina notices how the patient is gradually changing. This observation isn't made by ordinary women. In addition to the fact that Katerina is a psychologist, she is also a writer. In the past, she says. Since February of this year, she suddenly lost her inspiration, but while working in Ocean of Good, the desire to write gradually returning. Her stories are unique, incredible, aching.
Была у нас Ирина, она достаточно такая была, тяжелая в контакте в том плане.
We had such Irina. She was quite hard to contact with, in the sense that she was not elderly, but she was in the wheelchair. She got over the death of her mother and she had to leave her dog, the only friend she had there in Siversk. Means the volunteers didn't take her with the dog and she had to leave this dog. And it was the biggest stress for her. And we talked to her. It didn't come to light all right away. Then she showed photos of this dog, and then we found her motivation to recover and live on. She set herself the goal to return there and to pick this dog up.
Вылечиться и жить дальше. Она поставила себе цель вернуться туда и забрать эту собаку.
Katerina is sure that after the operation, her ward Irina will return and save her four-legged friend wherever it is. Olga Volkova knows that miracles happen. It is hard to surprise me with anything. I can only be happy for persons who are taking their first step. Here I see, for example, a bedridden man. And I say, "Really? Bedridden? Come on, crawl yourself." But his legs don't bend. Stop, really? His legs don't bend? I show and he really crawls.
Вчера приехали поздно вечером, и вот переночевала бабушка у нас, покупалась, и это ее первые шаги у нас в корпусе. Вот она смогла дойти до туалета. Вчера нам ее привезли как лежачую.
The position of Olga Volkova is unchanged. If you are a person with a disability, then you have no right to relax. This status gives you more reasons to love life than a person who moves without problems and doesn't feel, for example, constant back pain. So, miracles are miracles, but you need to rely on the truth of life and provide real help to those who constantly need it.
Да, и женщина вот уже сидит хорошо. Тоже перелом шейки бедра. Мы им даем толчок, и когда они уезжают на новое место,
We give them an impulse, and when they leave for a new place of permanent residence, they already understand their capabilities, and we give many of them walkers, special sticks, wheelchairs.
палочки, кресла колесные даем.
Volunteers in Ocean of Good hope that people will not lose the skills they received in temporary residence center.
Кому я нужен был? Кому-то еще нужен.
Civilians, runaways from the war. Although Volodymyr now leans on crutches, he refuses to sit. Recently, he didn't walk at all. He arrived at the center Ocean of Good from Slaviansk, unconscious.
Самолеты начали летать рядом.
Jets began to fly nearby, and 2 bombs were dropped from the aircraft, and at that moment I fell from the 2nd floor. The fall was fatal. Volodymyr broke his femoral neck having a stroke. Naturally, the man doesn't remember how volunteers found him near a bombed-out house in his native Slaviansk. He didn't have any belongings or documents with him.
Это вы сейчас управляетесь самостоятельно уже, да? Все делаете сами?
Ну, как постель застелить. Ну,
да.
Я раз в день застилаю. Обычно, чай попил, пообедаю и ложусь.
It's time for miracle to happen in Volodymyr's life, and they happen in the center Ocean of Good.
Волонтеры, молодцы, ребята.
Volunteers are great. Guys, no words. They really put me on my feet.
Поставили реально.
The same volunteers said that the reason of Volodymyr's recovery is his desire to move constantly. That's why they called him Jumper. He just jumped on one leg. He didn't get into the wheelchair. He started to descend from the 1st floor. Although we have a freight elevator, but no, he jumps up and down the stairs on his own. He has just been jumping on one leg for almost 3 months, back and forth, all day long. It was his restlessness that did a disservice to the health of a man. Because he constantly leaned on one side, the displacement of the pelvis occurred, and he was taken to the hospital, and implant was placed on his bad leg, and now he works perfectly for a person after surgery, after so many months without normal walking. He is great. The miracle happened more from his desire, from his walk. Volunteers. Thanks to them, fundraised, he underwent surgery. A prosthesis of the femoral neck was installed into him. He returned just a couple of days ago. He rested after the operation, regained his strength, and now we will work with him to restore normal walking.
Нам приезжают люди, которые 7 лет лежат.
We receive persons who have been bedridden for 7 years, and with us they begin to rise. beds with railings, with armrests, with a gander hang up. They pull up, start moving, start grabbing the rail, means those people about whom relatives say that they are lazy, do not want to do anything. They begin to move themselves, roll over, sit up in these beds. Some of them who stay longer with us due to some circumstances even get on walkers. Recently, a set of simulators to improve leg work and renew hard motor skills after strokes appeared in the center. This is led by future volunteers doctors under the supervision of psychologists and rehabilitation specialists.
Із самого початку існування центру «Океан добра» тут розробили алгоритм дій. Евакуйованих приймали потім.
From the very beginning of the center establishment, an algorithm of actions was developed here. The evacuees were accepted. Then, after a week or two, they were transferred to their places of permanent residence. But when people like Volodymyr appeared here, ergotherapists joined the work with people. It turned out to be a great practice with good result.
Положите, пожалуйста, вашу руку сюда. Нормально вам по?
Да, нормально.
Так, теперь максимально вам нужно вот так вот раскрыть запястье, берете за ручку и в разные стороны, влево, вправо. Да.
We will seek his hand works as much as possible. If you have been working for 2 months, then he will feel a normal work in his hand. The second miracle in Volodymyr's life was the restoration of documents.
Да. Я приехал сюда, в Днипро, ничего не было.
Где документы остались ваши? Начинать нужно с паспорта. Но каждая ситуация, так же, как и каждый человек.
Every situation, like every person, is unique. Sometimes people do not have neither photocopy nor any documents at all. Therefore, we have to communicate with the territorial authorities of State Migration Service of Ukraine, with registry offices, with social services in order to find some documents on the basis of which it is possible to restore at least a Ukrainian passport in future, with which it is possible to restore other documents in future. Now Volodymyr Melnikov is once again the man with a passport.
Операцию сделали, документы восстановить помогли, можно начинать жить сначала.
Обрадовались же, когда получили документы.
I would like, of course, to go home, says Volodymyr. But what is happening now in Slaviansk is unknown. Now in Dnipro, his life is limited to the bed in the small room and walks around the yard. But after what he got through, Volodymyr now literally owns the world and isn't in a hurry to go anywhere. Now everything will be fine. A wheelchair for a person with any disability is either sentence for the way of the new turn of fate. Neither one nor the other. The wheelchair is another trial, Alexander says. Before the injury, I had my own company. I had a lot of employees and just friends, work colleagues.
Я туда общался.
I went on a business trip. I couldn't cope with the driving. I was 37 years old. That was 15 years ago. Civilians, runaways from the war.
Все кресла разные бывают.
Well, all wheelchairs are different. For most of them, the principle is the same.
Принцип один и тот же. То есть это быстросъемные колеса.
These are quick detached wheels, removable shields, pillows.
Подушки.
Throughout 15 years, the man has become so accustomed to a wheelchair that he can probably disassemble or reassemble it with his eyes closed. Alexander considers this mechanical device a marvelous invention of mankind.
Я вам скажу честно,
I will tell you frankly, it's not the wheelchair that makes the life full, but the person himself. And he proves this idea on his own example.
Год, по сути, вообще пролежал.
In fact, I have been lying for 1 year without leaving my apartment. Fortunately, I have a lot of friends who try to support me in every possible way, by hook or by crook. Friends are quick and reliable help. I started exercising diligently when I had already been in the wheelchair. I didn't want to sit at home, I wanted to move. I just knew that there was some perspective in the movement. I started going to the gym. Well, it's strong words, started working. Then I was completely unprepared. My friends came in turn and lowered me from the 4th floor to the ground floor, took me to the gym, waited for me and then lifted me up. I still couldn't climb on my own. In time, Alexander decided not to break his friends away from their business, but to become an independent and self-confident person. I saw somewhere in YouTube how a person climbs the stairs in the wheelchair on his own. I began to work on this problem, and from the pictures I learned how to climb on the 4th floor autonomously. Such stairs, and in principle any stairway, cannot be overcome by a person in a wheelchair. But our hero Alexander Soprun managed to do that. He does up and down on his own in his wheelchair. Moreover, he teaches others how to do it right. Alexander has priceless experience in climbing stairs on his own. He always shows this experience to others, that if person wants, he can do everything. Volunteers from the United Nations humanitarian mission Proliska help the center and also turn to its specialists to get the necessary skills. There are 2 methods that allow a person in a wheelchair to get downstairs and upstairs, backwards and face forward. In the same way you can go downstairs. Stand behind me. Grab the handles and that's it. You can also go upstairs in the same way. As you can see, one person can autonomously go downstairs and upstairs. 2-3 steps in the entrance. This is not such a big obstacle for a person if he is prepared. We unite active people with disabilities so that they share their experience later, and people who are injured, especially now, during the war, so that they understand that life in the wheelchair doesn't end. You can live fully in those circumstances in which they found themselves. The stairs turn into the training ground. Alexander patiently explains to the volunteer how to act correctly while a person in a wheelchair goes downstairs and upstairs. First of all, you take him and overturn him on ourselves while lifting him up. Always pay attention to the fact that the back is tilted slightly. If you slightly change the slope, the person may fall out from the wheelchair. So, it is necessary to practice in order to make climbing safety.
И одновременно только раз, есть. На себя наклонили, не надо торопиться, наклонили, есть. Наклонили, есть. Если это все дело так нормально отработать, то оно, в принципе, тут больше не на силу, а на сноровку. Тык.
How the ascents and descents take place without outside help, Alexander also demonstrated.
20 до перил.
The ring should be 20 centimeters to the railing, so that the small wheels do not get stuck in the staircase structure. Then we take the railing with one hand, put on the balance, with the other hand put on the wheel. And then we work synchronously with both hands. And it turns out like this, little thing.
Чик, штучка.
On the platforms between spans you need to rest. Once Alexander went up to the fourth floor to his apartment several times a day. Sometimes he was too hasty.
Конечно, было. Я падал там.
You know, there are no ups without downs. Of course I fell, and more than once, because I usually get up after a workout, all tired and want to go faster and faster. There are all sorts of nuances there. Sometimes I gave a slack, the wheelchair swept off, and that's it. I went down one span on my ass. Then I sat into the wheelchair again, relaxed a little, gathered strength, and went up again. There were such insulting cases when I already on the last step in front of the apartment, boom, and I fell. It is impossible not to notice that Alexander's hands are quite trained. Indeed, he also remembered sports. Another page of our hero's life has been opened.
Попробовать себя в гребле.
I was invited to try rowing. I liked it. Then I joined the national Paralympic team. I didn't participate in the Olympic Games, but I was involved in the European and World Championships. Our team is very strong. We have Paralympic champions. It's both the sport and the way of life. You can look at the world from the unusual view of the water surface. Most of us can only dream about it. Alexander made the smell of the river air, the sound of the oars, and the landscape of the river banks the part of his life.
У меня своя лодка есть, у меня есть весло свое.
I have all my equipment, my own boat, my own paddle, whale, everything you need to get out on the water. In good weather, I do not deny myself the pleasure of going out for a race. This is such a fascinating kind of sport. I really like it. Despite my advanced age, I can row about 10 kilometers on a boat with pleasure. But wherever he is, Alexander always remembers people with a similar fate, those who need support. Alexander always goes to them. As soon as a person finds himself in such situation, for the first days he needs to instill faith, hope that life in the wheelchair continues, and you can live it with dignity and quality. I can say without any boasting that I have very good quality life. And I think the only thing that distinguishes me from other people is the way of transportation.
Скажем так, а других людей это просто.
People walk on their feet, and I move in the wheelchair.
Так. Вдоль. Приветствую. Все хорошо. Сможете стать на них? Хотя бы устоять чуть-чуть, давайте.
In the center of social adaptation of people with disabilities in Dnipro, almost all patients are with small mobility or bedridden.
Поворачиваемся сюда, ко мне, ко мне, ко мне. Оп, ножки на землю сможем поставить, да? А ручки у нас рабочие. Давайте я держу сзади, хватайтесь меня за шею. Так вот, обхватывайте меня, как обнять хотите. Только вот так через верх, да. Готовы? Раз, два, три.
The help of volunteers in daily life of these people is simply unavailable here.
Сидим. Ножки ставим. Так.
The idea itself was interesting because it was work with people, means work with people will be useful for me as a student. Since the beginning of the war, it has just been my subconscious. Something needs to be done. Circumstances pressed morally. You really help with your hands. I help here as much as I can, and somewhere else where help is needed. Civilians, runaways from the war. Just every day here surprises me, to be honest. Now it's easier, there are not so many people, but before there were an awful lot of people, difficult ones, a lot of interesting situations, cases from life, all are screwed. Of course, everyone needs to be listened to. This also takes time and efforts.
Если хотите, можете уже лечь, если устали.
Я хочу додому.
Додому хочете? Ну, а що зробити зараз? Поки що тут будемо. Потім домой. Оп. Давайте вас приподниму доверху. Оп. Оп. Все. Дедуля, ви откуда ви?
З Дніпра.
Що, там сильно зараз б'ють?
Пострілювали, да.
Пострілювали. А хата жива у вас?
Я не знаю, що.
Не знаєте?
The old man didn't see his relatives for 10 days. He cannot remember how they split it up. Who knows, maybe son or daughter will arrive soon, or they will call. In the meantime, the old man will be here under the supervision of volunteers such as Pavlo.
Не переживайте, ви в хороших руках.
Мы изначально сразу приглашали к себе.
At first, we immediately invited future ergotherapists to work as orderlies. The guys are young, active, they come, help with pleasure, mess with the old people.
Они с удовольствием помогают, возятся с бабушками.
Сюда из студентов пришли, то есть там
A couple of guys came here from the students, and we also offered to become orderlies. We agreed, came with a group.
Хорошо. Пришли компании, как бы.
And now, however, there are only 2 students left from the whole group, Pavlo and Victoria. They are from the same year of medical university. Future ergotherapists. Volunteers determined themselves the main direction of their work in the center. In addition to daily care of the people, they need to be rehabilitated. Everyone, even the bedridden. We are learning them to walk again. If they were bedridden, we verticalize them. They get used to stand, and if they are with a stick, with a walker, we step by step wean them from those devices so that they disaccustom. This also requires physical endurance, so to lift a person, put him in the wheelchair, then after a walk return him to bed. Not an easy task.
Да, с педалями. Так, стой, сейчас помогать буду.
If not my sports training, I would probably already have a broken back. Here people sometimes are not so light, they are also big ones. And what sports you went in for? Powerlifting, training with heavy weights gave me a big advantage.
Оп, разворачиваемся и прыгаем назад. Оп.
Там можешь кидать.
Все, сели. Так.
The most important thing is to keep your back straight and push your butt back. When we relieve a person, he must help us. If he cannot do anything, then we grab him by anything. By the trousers leg, by the belt, if there is one. We lift him up and turn him over with our body. So everything must be approached wisely. And a lot you can be learned from these very young people. For example, ways to transfer a person into the wheelchair. And at the same time, you don't harm either him or her health. It is necessary to consider the fact that when positioning verticalize, you should never touch the joints, knee, shoulder, elbow. We always take, if it's legs, then either below or above the knee. We look at the person. If we have to transfer a person, then we must take him under the shoulder blades, and if the person is able, he must grab you by the shoulder or by the neck. Even with one hand, it will be help. And most importantly, do not stand, that's how I stand in now, smooth. You have to put your feet up, because if you stand incorrectly, you can fall with the person or harm yourself. To give a person hope and convince him that everything will be fine, sometimes it is possible through such hugs.
Вышел, сейчас будем тогда его искать. Ищем.
Зачем? Что, все на гильотину?
Нет. Хотят, стой, я тут все. У тебя хотят интервью взять.
Какая газета?
Не газета, а канал.
Канал?
Да, хотят у тебя интервью взять.
Посерьезнее,
Ты не против?
Да? Я не против.
Да.
Бо я им сейчас наговорю.
The adventures that fell to the lot of Alexander Fedenko would be enough for 2 or 3 lives. But it so happened that they experienced them alone. Alexander is almost completely blind. The man was evacuated from Toretsk in August 2022.
Подъезжает скорая.
Ambulance arrives. So, Fedenko Alexander, get ready. The bus won't wait. So what? I collected main things that I needed in a big bag and departed.
И поехал я.
They had to live under shelling. And at night and during the day it rumbled often. And now, do you call your mother? What is happening there? Same. They are bombing, shelling. Could she go with you? I don't know. For some reason she put me in the evacuation list alone, and she stayed there. Civilians. Runaways from the war. About 20 years ago, Alexander worked as a miner. Then there was an accident, but not at work. The kids played, you may remember, with needles and paper darts. And this dart hit me in the left eye. It didn't leak out, but it got into the pupil. And I was told that it had to be removed, otherwise the other eye would be affected. Traveling from hospital to hospital was not very successful. At first, doctors were kind.
Поставила
A prosthesis was installed instead of my left eye. But then I see something strange happening. The right eye began going blind. I went to the ophthalmologist and then went to Kramatorsk. The doctor said, Alexander, you have detached retina, but it is operable. You need 20,000 hryvnias, but I see you don't have such money. I said, Doctor, well, if you see that, then it would be logically not to continue. But if the loss of vision was the only problem, there is no hand up to the shoulder, got under the train, cut off by the train. He jumped into the running train and he missed. A thrill seeker, but it is what it is. The disability pension made it possible to live somehow. Meanwhile, the vision of the right eye was deteriorating. Alexander got to the next doctor already on Dnipro.
Алло, мам, то, что я тебя беспокою? Как у вас там, как у вас там нормально? Не долбят? Пока нет, затишья нема, стреляют, как и было, да? Постоянно.
The Alexander's fate made another turn the road of which was drawn by the war. Evacuees from Turets to Dnipro were temporarily accommodated in the space near the railway station. Opposite the train station in the department store Express, I was accommodated there in the baby care room. Not just me, there were hundreds of people there. One of the well-meaning volunteers advised Alexander to move on. Yaroslav said, Alex, in Kropivnitsky city there is a special boarding school for the blind. But I won't release you today. Wait for the day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow came. Imagine, I took this train, we started off, and 2 hours on the way already passed. I thought I still need to find a conductor and clarify everything. I found the conductor and we got acquainted. I asked her, Natasha, how long before we got to Kropivnitsky city? Couple of hours? She replied me like a madman. We are not going to Kropivnitsky city. I ran cold. I asked, where are you going? Where are you taking me? She said, to Lviv. Then I said, whoa, haven't seen me yet over there. Volunteers met me there on the platform, and I have been shuffling for 2 days at the train station. Imagine, without any document. When the ambulance picked me up from my home, my mother had all the documents. So I went to Lviv without any documents, where I didn't even intend to go. Some kind of parcel. 18 hours on the way both there and back. I was accommodated again in the department store, spent one more night, and then Olga and Maria came for me. I saw Alex. He didn't have one arm and he was completely blind. I liked that he didn't drink alcohol. It is important. I suggested him to come to us. In Dnipro, Alexander returned to his eye problems again. He was brought back to the ophthalmologist. He checked me up and said, Alex, the retina is not detached, but your cornea is bent. You need to straighten it and change the lens. I replied, Doctor, you have said another 25,000 hryvnias. And he answered, Alex, we do all this here. They will do it for you for free, but you do not have an electronic declaration. Your doctor didn't draw up an electronic declaration for you, although he was obliged to do so. And then the right decision came to Alexander.
И я такой думаю, пойду до Ольги Валерьевны.
I thought maybe I should go to Olga, and I went to her. She said to me, Alex, yes, we have such medical facilities, but right now we have neither a diagnostic center nor doctors. Everyone evacuated to Western Ukraine. I'm just sending you to Germany for treatment. I replied, Mrs. Olga, I have 15 kopeikas in my pocket. What treatment are you talking about? And she answered, I am sending you to Germany for a treatment for your eye.
С направлением в Германию на лечение глаза твоего. Документы здесь мне уже сделали. И загранпаспорт, и пластиковый украинский. Все документы в порядке.
After all, the stick of failures and bad trips must someday end. Alexander hopes so. The main thing is not to lose hope. He is now in Germany, preparing for surgery. Yes, he is already in surgery.
В общем-то, никогда не думал, да, то есть имея 3 высших образования.
Having 3 university degrees, I never thought that I would work as an orderly, as at the same time as psychologist, as an organizer, as a matron. And all these qualities of a person, they become in demand, because who else but you? Help is needed here and now, specifically.
Сейчас помощь нужна здесь и сейчас, конкретно.
Civilians, runaways from the war.
Как хотите. Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. Здравствуйте.
Вот наши бабулечки. Как чувствуете себя?
А я идем пока.
Посидите чуть-чуть, поговорите, расскажете чуть-чуть про себя, да? Мы сейчас потихонечку, давайте. Вот так. Мне как бы сказали о том, что здесь...
I was told that people are needed here to help old ladies, old men, invalids. And what exactly? Come and see.
Ну, приходи, увидишь. А откуда вы приехали к нам?
С Каменки.
С Каменки. Скажите, пожалуйста, как вам тут?
Хорошо.
Хорошо,
Холодно,
да?
Хорошо.
Да. Домой, наверное, хочется все равно, да? Домой хочется.
Хочется.
Ну, а зато тут, видите, нас не стреляют хотя бы. Хоть
Да.
тихо, спокойно, да?
А там, скажу, у мене зразу, як проїду, так і стрілять.
Ну, сначала для меня, конечно, это было тяжело. Психологические какие-то моменты, барьеры.
At first it was hard for me, of course. Some barriers had to be overcome. It was necessary to realize inside myself that I can do it, that I need to try to do it. I need to try to help this person. And so day after day.
И вот день за днем, да.
Any difficulties can be overcome if you just follow the steps and don't drive in the details. Because sometimes the stories of people who were evacuated from the East are simply shocking.
А у вас там кто-то остался из родственников?
Да, дочка и внук. Не, я не звоню, не он не звонит.
И они не звонят? Или они звонят? Есть люди, которых привозят, которых бросили родные.
They are brought in people, abandoned by their relatives. They put a bucket with the water and a bag with scratches near the beds, close the apartment and left for Germany. Do you understand that? And then volunteers will find them out thanks to the neighbors. Break down the doors, drag these people out of the apartment on sheets or whatever that comes to hand. Naturally, imagine their condition. They are with bed sores, and this is terrible. It seems that for 8 months of the existence of the Center Ocean of Good, one could get used for everything, if only indifferent people worked here.
Такие судьбы проходят, что
You face it with such awful fates, and their pain you pass through yourself. We meet with all sorts of people. Some come and say, "Take our mother somewhere from me." Of course, initially I explode with indignation, but on the other hand, I cannot judge them. And how can I blame those people who remain under shelling and send their orders to us? Thanks them for sending.
все хорошо. А что такое? Вам холодно? Вы в платочке. Не холодно? Ноги торчат, а платочек чего? А может вас на эту кровать повыше переложить, не?
Нет, мне хорошо. Сюда привезли, вы знаете, я просто радуюсь, душе не нарадуюсь, как здесь хорошо, чисто, тепло, кормят очень вкусно, как на курорте, я бы сказала, как на курорте.
Alexander says that at the center, while communicating with these people, you begin to understand what mercy is. Only too fast running time is merciless.
Открываешь паспорт человека, да, и смотришь вот фотографию, первая фотография, которая там в паспорте.
You open someone's passport and look at the photo. As a rule, it is middle-aged woman or a man, or even a young one, and you can see what kind of face it is.
Можно многое сказать человеку, вот по его глазам, даже вот.
You can tell a lot about a person by his face, by his eyes. It seems that photos in the passport are very official or unsuccessful for one's point of view, but the eyes remain alive on the photo. You can immediately tell from them that he is soft, kind, sociable and love-loving man. And right now he lies and can't do nothing. He's in pain, feels bad, and there is no one around those people who once needed him. It's a double tragedy. Alexander's sincere monologue is motivated by deep sympathy, but productive. This is when you try to do everything for a person, everything to return his face. Alexander tried the effect of volunteering on himself. He says, "I don't know when, but he just stopped being afraid of this work." We wash chamber pots after people, bathe them, wash them, because there are people who can wash themselves. And there are those who cannot. And as a rule, people brought in by volunteers are those who haven't been able to bath for weeks.
Вчера ж покупали вас, да? Да. Да, вчера Леночка купала.
Спасибо, спасибо. Кровать чистая, все хорошо.
Понятно. До свидания.
До свидания, счастливо.
Спасибо благотворительным фондам. Когда мы открылись, кровати мы нашли, все.
When we opened, thanks to charity funds, we found beds, but we had only 2 toilet chairs, so people almost fought over them. We moved them from room to room.
Поставить стул возле кровати — это стимулирование человека.
Putting the chair near the bed means stimulating a person to get out of bed, to move, to change seats, and he starts to move. Each time these movements are getting better and better.
И с каждым разом эти движения все лучше и лучше идут. Лучше будете прыгать, лучше будете гимнастикой заниматься, правильно? Меньше лежать, правильно. Когда первым к нам приехал француз Андрей, я помню, с организации Hey, и он вот...
When a Frenchman from a charity organization came to us, the first thing they gave us was 10 toilet chairs, 2 wheelchairs and a walker. It was just like Klondike.
Klondike.
Кто застрял? Дедушка? Что такое?
Gifts to the center are not regular. There is always something missing. Volunteers compensate this lack by increased attention to everyone.
Разворачиваемся. Разворачиваемся. Не бойтесь. А это, я вам хочу сказать, очень непросто.
And I can tell you, this is not easy task. People are normal, healthy, but now they are depressed due to the current situation. And no need to hide. We ourselves, volunteers, need psychological support too. And not only because we work with such difficult, complex people, but simply because we also have families, we live in the same country, in the same realities. Alexander's main place of work is National Historical Museum named after Dnipro Yavornitsky. Here he is senior researcher at the archaeology department. Before the war started, he began to write a scientific work on his favorite topic, anthropology, means the study of the human nature. It is a twist of fate. Observant people in the most extreme situation, however, do not perceive them as an object of study, but simply be close to them.
Все последующие события, они говорят о том, что
All subsequent events mean that if you thought that this is difficult, then you are mistaken. Constantly arose more and more difficult situation for you, and you need to stay human. It seems to me that this is the most important thing. Today's motto is to remain human.
дня останься человеком.
Руками не помогать. Все. Вы в кадре, сударь.
In the center ocean of good, Sergei works as orderly. Probably such calm person with kind eyes should help lots and helpless people.
Здравствуйте. Все нормально у вас? Сейчас покушаете, да? Хорошо, все. Пускай лежат. Я приду, потом поменяем памперс.
Working in an institution of temporary residence of evacuees means doing everything.
Да.
Так, взялся, Сережка.
Давай.
Да вот же со вторую бери.
Да он же с той стороны станет. Я снизу поддержу, потому что это не факт.
Sergei came from Severodonetsk to Dnipro with his wife in May 2022.
Мы как-то в квартире.
As long as there were electricity and gas, we stayed in our apartment in Severodonetsk. We experienced all sorts of things, like shelling, but I was very scary for my wife, because she has limited mobility. It was hard for her. Civilians, runaways from the war.
Ну что ты, Ленчик, лежишь, балдеешь?
Sergey's wife Alena has the first group of disability and has not been getting out from the bed at all for 20 years. Somehow they got along with it, adapted to, and even lived well. But how they left Severodonetsk is hard to recall. Their son helped them. Firstly, they arrived to Slaviansk, then drove to Dnipro.
Тебе ничего не надо?
Вообще-то пока ничего.
Если что, позвонишь по телефону, скажешь, что надо. Я приду. Понял? В этом центре мы жили. И были в списках на отправление дальше. Вот. Ну, я, говорится, сидеть.
We lived in this center being on the list of departure further. Well, it's hard for me to sit and do nothing when I'm used to work, and I help local orderlies here, help as a volunteer. And then Olga Volkova, the director of this center, offered us to stay.
Вот, она предложила нам остаться. Ну, мне, конечно, лучше остаться здесь, чем ехать.
Of course, it's better for me to stay here than rather go somewhere.
Ну, как говорится, никто не берет.
No one takes us abroad for treatment because no one wants to cope with such disease. That's why we stayed here. I stayed here to work.
И остался я работать.
Когда люди приезжают со своими, они своих
When people come to us with their relatives, they look after them and after those who are around them. We notice who needs to be invited to stay in order of them to help.
Кого можно оставить или нужно, да, допустим, мы их предлагали им остаться для того, чтобы они помогали с теми.
So Sergei, Raya, Irina appeared. They work in our center on a volunteers basis.
У нас на волонтерских, в принципе, началах все это делали.
Добрый день, бабуля.
Да.
Что мы?
Все нормально. А мы вам пледик еще принесли.
Previously, Sergei worked as electrician, power engineering at the large enterprise. His experience and hands were in demand at the center. He not only does everything that is necessary, but also gradually masters a new, merciful profession. He hears everyone, he sympathizes with everyone.
На 3 минуты, ну, можно прерваться. Просто человек, когда жил, например, у себя там.
When a person lived at home, he got used to everything, to his apartments, he knows how to walk if he has limited mobility. Then he felt nervous stress because the neighbor house was bombed, his neighbors killed or something else. They were brought in shocked. Now the newcomers become calmer, but earlier they were brought in shocked completely. You bathe them, feed them, lay him down. Then he slept and apparently didn't walk. But then he tries to get up, somehow to go.
Потом он поспал, выспался, вот, вроде не ходил, а потом раз пытается встать, как-то пойти. Сколько?
Да я знаю, что было пониже мне, просто не высоко. Ты как? Левый.
Я не буду застегивать.
Понимаю, хорошо.
Хорошо, добре. Ну, пробуйте. Ви ж ходили вже?
Да, да,
так.
вроде да, ниже.
Ну, а ну, переставляйте, до мене йдіть. Давайте, пробуйте.
Sergei now often recalls his hometown. He says, where I was born, there and people found. He studied there, got married there. There his son was born. Weekends and holidays passed there.
Луганская область, город Северодонецк.
This year, Severodonetsk city could celebrate 88 years anniversary, but just since February, all citizens dispersed in different directions. Someone left on his own, someone was evacuated, someone stayed. Basically, people left the city. Once the population of the city was about 100,000 inhabitants. It is a young, beautiful city. We lived here calmly, quietly, and did not interfere with anyone. He is still calm, even tempered person. Therefore, the inhabitants of the center love him so much, and they are always waiting for Sergei to come and help.
Это человек, который, когда приезжают бабушки, и как бы, не всем приятно, когда за ними ухаживает мужчина.
Not everyone old broughton lady is pleased when a man takes care of them, but thanks to his kindness, Sergei disposes them so that they call only him. Sergei, Sergei, help, do it. This happens when a man patiently feeds, puts them in the toilet, changes diapers. It is very costly.
Туалет меняет памперс. Это очень дорого стоит.
А что она сказала?
За що вам апарат нужен? Ви опять не чуєте. Де він стоїть? Тут стоїть. А ви ж платком закрили його. Апарат. Хорошо робить?
Да.
Ну, а кажете, не чуєте нічого. Ну то не закривайте платком,
Сідайте.
а то не чути.
Я очень благодарна нашему коллективу, потому что
I'm very grateful to our team because they are not indifferent people. They are ready to work every day.
И каждый день.
Those who watch these stories can make contribution to the common goal of the saving people, and let it be a drop, but it will be a pour into the ocean. All the details of the Dnipro Center of Social Adaptation of People with Disabilities Ocean of Good can be found in social networks. There is also all information about the place where people save people.